speaking to our political editor, Tim Donovan. Well, turning to Camden now, and BBC London has seen emails showing how residents flagged up serious concerns over fire safety in their tower block in 2007 and were assured by the council and contractors that work would be put right. 10 years on, the fire brigade last week declared the building unsafe and it was evacuated with others on the Chalcots estate. Mark Ashdown has the story.
Homeless, desperate, still they come. But should all this have been avoided? In 2007, the Chalcots estate underwent a massive £153 million refurbishment. Ryden, which also worked on Grenfell Tower, was the main contractor for Camden Council. As well as adding cladding, windows were upgraded, along with internal works. The gas and electrics were overhauled. These pictures, residents say, were sent round of a show flat, highlighting what they could expect. But this is what they say they were faced with. These pictures were taken by various residents after work was carried out, showing a raft of problems, the worst of which exposed gas pipes, not boxed in or properly sealed through firewalls. They saw that as fit, that work?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's how they were doing the work. I mean, this wasn't a temporary work. I mean, this was literally copper pipes for water and gas, but we're more concerned with the gas pipes, literally just being bashed above the plywood above the door. Now, it's important to understand that the wood above the door was just one thin piece of plywood. Flammable plywood.
We've seen emails to Camden and Ryden in which tenants describe the work as highly dangerous, which clearly shows the potential for disaster. There is considerable unease with residents on grounds of health and safety, they write, adding families have had their children's lives put at direct risk of serious injury. In September 2007, they got a reply from a Camden official.
The gas supply pipework will be removed and replaced by pipework that will be in compliance with the building regulations.
A month later, a senior manager at Ryden added,
"Please be assured that we're currently addressing any potential compromises to health and safety. We're conducting an internal review of our management procedures to establish how and why this situation occurred."
Work was then carried out to fix things, and as far as residents knew, it was all signed off as safe until last week. After Grenfell, the fire brigade was called in and declared these buildings were unsafe to live in, 10 years after the refurbishment work was carried out. Arnold Dix is a fire safety expert.
It's no surprise to me that the residents identified these problems years ago, and the disgusting part about that is that nothing was done, which I'm also not surprised about. I've looked at other buildings in London over the last week or so, and each building that I've been in has got substandard subcontractor work.
I've lost a lot of sleep. When the works were signed off, we all thought, sigh of relief, we were safe, all the work done. If things were not done safely in so many areas, then we don't know what would have happened. If there had been a big fire, I think we were living probably on borrowed time.
Ryden said they were not responsible for gas risers or wiring in Chalcots, so complaints would have been passed on to those responsible. They maintain all their work met required building regulations. Camden told us the UK needs a whole new safety regime. Years of cutting so-called red tape and discrediting of health and safety have taken their toll. Change is needed. But questions remain. How could work now declared unsafe lie undetected for a decade? And why did it take such a tragic loss of life to uncover it? Mark Ashdown, BBC London News.
This gas meter. That is okay. The bigger risk is what happens to the pipe on the other side. Where does it run up the building? Is there a void where fire can travel up behind somewhere?
And that will be something they're checking.
That should be something they're checking, yeah.
Actually, Gordon, I can probably assist because I was actually one of the representatives that are going through. I can tell you that these pipes come in here where the two large holes are.
Right.
These were actually cut by a diamond drill and gone through the concrete on the other side into the false ceiling on the other side of the corridor.
Right.
And all the gas pipes have run laterally around the false ceiling in the corridor, from gas riser pipes that vertically come up. And what I have heard is that these holes here have not been actually sealed.
No, I can see this. This is not sealed here, but on the other side it may be.
On the other side it may be. We can't say from this side.
No. No.
Okay. All right. Great. Well.
Yes. I mean, there are two kinds of fire doors in these flats. flat entrance door, and that has to be, without no doubt at all, 30-minute fire resisting. And that's a severe test. The fire resistance test, gets up to about 800 centigrade for over half an hour. And then there are doors within the flat, which some of those need to be fire resisting, but under recent government changes in regulations, they're not required to be self-closing. Why? Because it's inconvenient to have a door on your kitchen closed every time you go through it. The other thing I notice is that the kitchen, which is accepted as a high-risk area because of cooking, in the flat we saw, did not have a fire door actually on the kitchen. Now that is not acceptable. I know why it's not there, because it's inconvenient to use. Yes, other doors within the flats are, some of them are very poor.
And so that'll be these 1,000 doors then that they're referring to, front doors and internal doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
There won't be any missing flat entrance doors, but there will be defective flat entrance doors. So we've seen a few this morning.
And in your view, how shocking is that? Because clearly it's been something that they've just allowed and turned a blind eye to.
Well, this should have been picked up in the fire risk assessment. So somebody, like me, might be the local authority or a private fire consultant, has been brought in to do a fire risk assessment. He will have gone around, he will have checked things like, are there sprinklers, is there a fireman, what is the construction inside the means of escape, are there surface spread of flame problems, all these kind of things. These will have been noted by a risk assessor, because the buildings have been occupied for quite a few years, and as from 2005, the government said that every building, especially a tall building like this with a lot of people there, has to have a fire risk assessment. So, what does the fire risk assessment say? The other thing that we must ask is, how did this material be accepted by building control?
And now you're referring to the panels.
I'm talking to the panels outside of the building.
So let's move on to those then. So it transpires that they're made up of combustible polyethylene, Rainer-bond PE. Are you shocked that these fancy looking blocks are covered with combustible material?
Well, I am and I'm not, because it is possible to get plastic foam through a fire test, but it depends which fire test. And there is a fire test specifically for external cladding, where you have a large timber crib set on fire right next to the cladding. The cladding is 8 meters high specimen. If this cladding system has passed that test, which I doubt, then that shows the inadequacy of the test.
So all in all, you can understand why people have been evacuated from the Chalcots estate.
Yes, I can. The building is presumably it's a stay-in-place building, as the other tower blocks, and with this cladding, you don't know when a fire is going to happen. It could happen tomorrow. While everybody's being rehoused, you could have a fire. Statistically very unlikely. If you did a probabilistic assessment, you'd probably say, well, looking at all the aspects involved, that the likelihood of having another fire here is, say, once every year. But you can't afford to take the risk, with all these people. So, because I haven't been privy to what tests have been done, I think the natural thing is to evacuate the buildings. Perhaps a lot of them will have been unnecessary, but...
How critical, can you be of Camden? Should they have prevented this from ever happening?
I think somebody in building control, and also the fire authority, will be slightly worried that this has happened, because it's clearly a cladding system which has to be approved under building regulations, provided that the building control officer was aware that the insulation was combustible. And this is an interesting point, because if you look at fire literature, it will say, often it will just show insulation. It doesn't tell you that it's a plastic insulation, or whether it's polyethylene, polyisocyanurate, polyurethane foam, or expanded polystyrene. So unless that information is made clear to building control, they might just think it's some kind of insulation and it must be all right.
So Camden Council are saying they were given the wrong insulation that was specified, but should they have picked up on that? Should the Camden Council tests have been more stringent? I mean, we've just been in there and seen that the fire doors aren't up to scratch.
If this happens, okay, fire can go out through here and invade the whole escape route. You may not even see the first panel.
That's a fair point. So what I'm saying is, though, basic things like fire doors not being up to scratch.
Oh, yeah.
Should the council, in your view, have picked up on these things?
Yes, they should. And the fire risk assessor, whoever it is, whether it's a local authority member or a guy like me, a fire consultant, should have picked up on the bad condition of these flat entrance doors. The other doors within the flat, not quite so important, but the flat entrance door is a cardinal part of the fire barrier, and that lets into the staircase, which you've got to keep clear of smoke. So that's why you've got a fire door, why it's self-closing, why it has smoke seals, and so on. And these doors are failing in that regard.
But it is possible to make this building safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.